Moving on here, Ford shares trading lower in after hours after reporting its first quarter earnings. Joining us now is Autoblog Editor-in-Chief Greg Migliore. Greg, it's interesting for all the talk of EVs and this company in transition. It really was the legacy business that helped drive the gains here. We're talking about what is known now as Ford Blue, earning $2.6 billion.
Yeah, I give Ford credit for breaking out the different parts of their business. This is really a creative approach, if you will. We haven't really seen this in the automotive space before. So again, like I think I said, it's a creative approach to trying to explain where their priorities are. The results are basically what we expected. The traditional parts look pretty strong. The electric side of the business, as expected, you're seeing some, challenges there, if you will. Another side is the Ford Pro business, which is like commercial work trucks. That's actually a pretty lucrative business, which I think industry insiders already kind of knew, but now the whole world is getting to see that. So it's a very interesting earnings day for Ford.
Greg, what do you think is keeping investor sentiment in check right now? Is it the losses from its EV division? And how much do you think that also has to do with the increasing competition within the EV space that we've seen from a number of those traditional automakers?
Yeah, I think right now what we're seeing is there's so many different players getting into the EV space that investors are trying to figure out which horse to bet on. Is it sort of the new flashy thing like a Rivian or a Lucid? Or do you look at more of a traditional legacy automaker like, General Motors, Ford, Volkswagen, Mercedes, who all have, very deep portfolios, or they're growing them in the electric space? It's interesting. Ford has a lot of great electric vehicles. I've driven the Lightning, that's the F-150, the Mach-E, that's the Mustang crossover. These are very solid vehicles. So I think, the big challenge for Ford and for Jim Farley is to communicate the quality of these vehicles to the marketplace and to, of course, the stock market.
Greg, how long until we really start to see the full impact of the IRA? Obviously, when it was first passed, there were questions about incentives and to what extent, individual cars and brands would get the full incentive. Now we know the impact, at least for the Ford EV. When are we going to start to see that reflected in a big way?
Well, I think it's part of that becomes out of the consumers. How quickly do they decide to adopt it? How quickly do they pivot to these types of vehicles? So I think we're at least a couple of years away before we really see the full effect of that. And a big part of that also is even out of the hands of the automakers. It's, how is the infrastructure? Is it going to get there? Are people going to be able to charge their electric vehicles easily? Are they going to be able to charge them quickly? So, there are some things that are a little bit out of the hands of the automakers at this point.
Greg, what about the pricing war? I think we can call it that. That's broken out clearly among a lot of these automakers here. We had the news that Ford would be changing the price of its Mach-E because of some of the pricing moves that have been done at Tesla. What does that mean just in terms of the pressure that we're going to see in the margins of this business and how much Ford can really go with slashing their prices, given the fact that their margins are totally different when you compare it to what we're seeing at Tesla?
Yeah, I mean, right now you could get a much better deal on a Mach-E than you could have, a few days ago. Let's put it that way. These are significant price cuts, anywhere from $1,000 to almost $4,000 right on the hood. So they're significant price cuts. And the Mach-E, as an aside, actually gets a little bit better for the new model year. They're using a different battery chemistry, which will essentially make the batteries better. It's similar to what Tesla uses. So I think what you're seeing is, you said it right. It's a war. The F-150 Lightning, I think they probably underpriced that a little bit. And now they're seeing such strong demands that they've raised the prices on that one. And then with the Mach-E, you're in a little bit of a very competitive space and they drop it down. And that's interesting. You also saw Tesla today put an extra, I think it was very small, like $250 onto the pricing of the Model 3 and the Model Y, which are, of course, some of their slower selling vehicles. But I mean, pricing with the regular car market is kind of crazy right now. And then when you look at the electric space, it's writ large. It's kind of wacky. Let's put it that way.
Certainly is. And it's tough to keep up with all the changes that we're seeing at what seems like a daily basis. All right, Greg Migliore, always great to have you. Thanks so much for joining us again. Ford shares off just about 0.3%.